Take two here, Dave Birkett live from my home office. Talking a little bit 2009 Lions schedule release. Sorry, that first one had to flip the phone, so we're trying take two here. And like I was saying, I have figured I'd share some of my thoughts on the schedule release here. Here's some of yours as well. A lot of mine are online already. Just in terms of quick hit predictions. We do those every year. I always say don't take them to the bank this time of year, right? It's just our sort of first thought. I mean, there's a lot of roster development still left ahead. There's a lot still to see when it comes to the team that goes into some of these predictions. I mean, last year, as I wrote online, I had the Lions going 9-7 this time of year last year. Just kind of liked how the schedule set up. And then when it got time to actually see them on the field in training camp, I remember tweeting, I think, writing at least one or the other, or maybe both, that it was, I had the least amount of optimism ever coming out of a training camp. I picked them to go 7-9 only because I couldn't find a 6 loss on the schedule, and they ended up going 6-10 anyway. So I had them going 7-9 in my initial schedule prediction this year. I know some people online have taken issue with me picking them to lose the first game. And look, frankly, I picked them to lose the first game because I saw what happened last year. They had a really rough training camp, a really tough training camp. It wore them down. They weren't ready for that opener. And everybody's saying, the Cardinals, who knows who their quarterback's going to be? It's the exact same thing that you were saying about the Jets last year, right? Lions had a gift wrap week 1 game, Sam Darnold, Monday night at Ford Field. And what'd they do? They laid an egg. They lost by 30 points. So, look, just because the Lions are playing, the team with the worst record in the NFL last year, a team that doesn't know who their quarterback is right now, maybe it's Kyler Murray, maybe it's Josh Rosen in year 2. We'll see. I mean, that's subject to change. Week 3, I have them beating the Eagles. I know there's some people out there who said I'm crazy for doing that too. Obviously the Eagles, I think at least the Eagles are going to be a pretty good team this year as long as Carson Wentz stays healthy. We know, obviously what the Eagles and Matt Patricia, their history, meeting in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. So, but I gave the Lions the victory there, thinking that Patricia won't let that happen again. Remains to be seen, obviously. Like I said, there's a lot of time to change these predictions, to sort of, once we get a better handle on who's going to be on this team, who the key contributors are, what injuries are looking like, and just how this team comes out of training camp, because that's going to be a big thing. I think the defense, some of the new additions, they obviously fit with what Matt Patricia wants, and we'll see how that all shakes out once they all get on the field. But just some quick thoughts on the schedule. Look, tough beginning of the year for the Lions. After that Arizona game, things will not be easy. Chargers at home. The Chargers should be one of the better teams in the AFC this year. Then they go on the road to Philadelphia, and then it's back home against Kansas City. And frankly, the Chargers, the Eagles, and the Chiefs are 3 of the probably 4 best teams on the Lions schedule this year. I mean, along with the Bears, right? The Bears were pretty good last year. Eagles beat the Bears in the playoffs. Everybody knows how good the Chiefs are. Patrick Mahomes, reigning MVP. That's certainly an attraction. That'll be an interesting game to watch. And guys, that's a pretty tough schedule of quarterbacks right there. Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Patrick Mahomes, and then you come back after the bye and you got Aaron Rodgers. So nothing easy there with the way the first 5 weeks set up for the Lions. I think if they go 2-2 before the bye, that could bode well for, maybe a little bit of a turnaround season. Because as I look at what's on the docket in October, and you don't like having the bye that early, but as I wrote my little schedule analysis, maybe the good thing is you get a little bit extra time to prepare for the Packers, and the Vikings are after that. So you should be healthy going into division games, and as we all know, division games are what matter the most. That's how that's your easiest path to the playoffs. But again, so they come back after the bye. They got a couple home games in a row: the Packers, the Vikings, the Packers games on the road, but then the Vikings and the Giants at home. I think, look, I don't think the Lions' schedule is incredibly difficult. I don't think it's easy. I think they have a tough start. I think they have some very winnable games later in the year. Those December games, Tampa Bay, Denver, even the Packers at home. I think Aaron Rodgers is poised for a bounce back year, but I don't know that, that if you're a playoff caliber team, those are games you should win. Leo says some of the best offenses the first 4 games are in the first 4 games, and we'll see what happens with the defense. He says the additions there on defense will allow them. I can't see it all right there, Leo. But yeah, I think you're right. They're certainly seeing two of the best offenses in the NFL in the first 4 weeks, in the Chargers and the Chiefs. And we all know what Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City did last year. I mean, they were scoring a ton of points. And I had somebody ask me on Twitter, you only have them scoring 31 points against the Lions defense. Well, look, the Lions played pretty good defense down the stretch last year. I believe that this will be a pretty good defense this year. I don't know if it's top of the NFL good, but I think it'll be a pretty good defense. The additions that they made and the way that Matt Patricia attacked some of those games, right? And the way the Lions want to play. They're going to run the ball. They're going to try to do some of those things. They're going to try to control the clock. And so if they can do that, I think they can hold the Kansas City offense somewhat in check. I don't have the Lions winning. I think Patrick Mahomes is that good and the Chiefs are that good. But I don't expect the Chiefs to put up, 48 points on them or anything like that. So, but yeah, Leo, look, I think if you have reason for optimism early on, maybe it's that the defense is ahead of the offense. New offensive coordinator. We'll see what happens with this offense when Matthew Stafford gets back in town. We'll see what it looks like. But the defense in year two with some of the additions, I think the Lions defense should be ahead of the Lions offense early. And so maybe that's some reason for optimism. Plus, those two games, the Chargers and the Chiefs, both at Ford Field. And look, it's easier. I know the Lions didn't have a great home record last year, but it's certainly easier to win games at home than on the road. A couple other thoughts that I threw out there online. There's one cold weather game that would concern me, the Denver Broncos, that Saturday or Sunday before Christmas. Playing in Denver, not an easy task to begin with. The Broncos run the football a little bit. They've got two really good pass rushers in Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. Vic Fangio had his way with the Lions last year. So, yeah, I think, that's a tough game. Weather could be a factor there. We'll see how the Lions adapt to that. They're not used to playing outdoors in some of that weather. I don't think weather in Arizona will be a factor week one. Could be hot, obviously, but perhaps the roof is closed. So that's really the only cold weather game. Washington, maybe we'll see. I guess that's late November. Chance of it being cold, but I don't quite put that in the same boat as that Denver game. And then the other thing that stood out to me, I mentioned that Washington game. Look, the Lions are on the road, and then they come back and they play Thursday, 4 days later. So I know, the road teams that the Lions play, the teams the Lions host on Thanksgiving are always used to doing that. But that's a little bit of a change. The Lions played 2017, I think it was. I looked it up. That was the last time they played on the road before Thanksgiving. They ended up coming home losing that game. So just a little thing to watch there, that's a road game. I looked, somebody can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I don't think the Lions play any teams that are coming off their bye weeks. So, they're not going to be, no teams are going to have an extra week of rest for before they face the Lions. It is, 12 straight weeks to play. That's tough in the NFL. Guys get beat up, and there's not a lot of time to heal up. For some of those physical games. I mean, they play the Bears twice in November, and the Cowboys, they run the ball a lot. So those are some of the Washington, for that matter. They're going to run the ball a lot. So those are going to be some physical games. And that could take its toll on the Lions, but this is something, Matt Patricia wants to be a physical team, something that he's pointed towards, being able to run the ball and get stronger as the year goes on. So we'll see how that shapes up. Let's see. Steve said, just beat the Cowboys so he doesn't have to listen to how great they are. Hey, I picked them to beat the Cowboys this year. The Lions, you remember, man, they were a Dak Prescott fumble away from, winning that, or recovering that fumble away from winning that game last year before the Cowboys went down and got that touchdown. I have the Lions in my early predictions. Again, I had them beating both the Cowboys. Man, I did. I had them winning the NFC East championship. I had them beating the Eagles and the Cowboys and Washington and the Giants. So, maybe that bodes well. Maybe I just don't think a lot of those teams. No, I do think Philly's going to be pretty good. But, we'll see. Dallas will be a tough game, but it's at home. I played a hunch there and went with the Lions to win that game. Nicole, what's with all the negativity on the Week 5 bye on Twitter? And after the first four, isn't worth it to... Sorry, Nicole, I can't quite click over to get that. I don't think it'll let me right here. But look, Week 5's a little bit early for the bye. You typically want it a little bit later. Again, just so, those mid-season buys are good. So that way you get a little bit of, you get a chance to heal up. You get a good portion of the schedule behind you. Playing 12 weeks again in the NFL is tough. It grinds on players' bodies. So it's a tough thing to do. And as I said, especially that November stretch, when I looked at some of those games, those look like they're going to be pretty physical games for the Lions. Really from that me see here, November 10th, I guess, through December 8th. They're at the Bears, home against the Cowboys, at Washington, home against the Bears, and at Minnesota. Those Minnesota games have always taken a toll on the Lions. Bears are going to be a physical team, a good defensive team at least. Washington and Dallas run the ball a lot, so I think that's a tough stretch to navigate right there for the Lions. Not as tough as that September stretch, but tough for different reasons, I guess. So I think that's where some of the concern over the Week 5 bye comes. It's just a little bit early in the season. You'd rather have it, towards the end of October, middle of the season type, so that way you have a chance to heal up when some of those little bumps and bruises and nicks start nagging, late into the season. Any other thoughts from you guys out there? I'd love to hear them before I sign off. I see Leo says he has TJ Hawkinson in his mock draft. Hey, we're going to talk a little more draft tomorrow. Bob Quinn has his news conference tomorrow. Carlos and I will be out there to talk some draft. But Leo, I have Hawkinson in my last mock. I'm going to do another one for this week. I might involve trades, so I don't know exactly what I'm going to do this week yet. Have not sat down to do it. I've got a pretty interesting story dropping. I think it'll be online tomorrow on Devin Bush, the Michigan linebacker. Spent some time with him the other week. But yeah, Hawkinson, look, I wrote about him today. I think Hawkinson fits what the Lions want. I think, given the players that could be there for their picking, look, I'd give him Ed Oliver. I'd take Ed Oliver if he was there. I don't know if he's going to be there. We'll see what other pass rushers are there. If Josh Allen was there, they'd certainly take him. I just think Hawkinson fits what they want. He fills a need. He adds to the run. He adds to the passing game. I think he's a really solid player. I wrote about him today on Freak.com. Interesting guy. He seems to be the type of guy the Lions want. So that's why I've gone with him. And guys, here's an interesting thing. I've done 2 beat writer mock drafts here in the last week and a half or so. Both of the beat writer mock drafts, no quarterbacks have gone in the first 7 picks. I did one today for the LA Times. Sorry to spoil that one. That one comes out this Sunday. And I was making the Lions pick, but none of the first 7 picks were quarterbacks. So just gives you a little thought on maybe where things are headed with Arizona at number 1 and Kyler and the Giants, that if neither one of those teams takes a quarterback, there's going to be 1 or 2 other players off the board that maybe people didn't consider, didn't think would be gone. So that could be a tough thing for the Lions. They could see another player, a Devin White maybe, who could be there if all 7 of those teams in front of them are taking non-quarterbacks. Somebody is going to be gone that maybe the Lions had their eye on. So just a thought there. All right, Jenna on here says, Jenna and David, I don't know who it is. Jenna, David, hi both of you. Surprise, they end with Green Bay. It is tradition. They do it every single year. And look, I don't know exactly why. I would just think because week 1 is Chicago-Green Bay this year for the 100th season of the NFL. They didn't want to end Chicago-Green Bay again. Week 17 is all division games. So rather than have Chicago and Green Bay end, I guess they threw Chicago and Minnesota. I mean, they could have done Chicago and Detroit, but, I guess maybe Lions, Bears on Thanksgiving. They just decided to end it with a different matchup. But it is 4 straight years the Lions and Packers have played in Week 17. Last year the Lions won, but when things have been on the line, they have not fared quite as well. Darcy asks when I would address the offensive line in the draft. Look, I wrote something last week just saying don't rule it out for the Lions up top. I don't think they go there at number 8. I just don't know the value is quite there for them. If they trade down, I think that's certainly an option in round 1. But I think you can find the Lions should be able to find a starting guard on day 2 of the draft. Maybe in round 2, maybe it's round 3. A lot of guards in the NFL, if you look across the league, have come in that range. Larry Warford, who the Lions got a few years ago, he was a 3rd round pick. Certainly they spent big on Frank Ragnow. TJ Lang was a 5th round pick, but I think you can find that type of player on day 2, rounds 2, 3, and 4. And so I would think the Lions, if assuming they don't trade down or assuming they don't go guard in round 1, I think they do need to address that position. I think they do it on day 2. Day 2 seems like, to me, look, and I do my scenarios every year, right? Like if they take Hawkinson round 1, where do they go round 2? Where do they go round 3? Day 2 to me seems like it's going to be a cornerback, offensive guard, wide receiver, some mix of maybe those players for the Lions. I think, if the Lions went a pass rusher up top, maybe you're getting a receiver and and an offensive guard. If they go tight end in round one, maybe it's a cornerback and a guard. I mean, I just think they still need some help on offense. They didn't do a lot there in free agency. I think that's a place that we could see the Lions, a time that we could see the Lions address the offensive line. One more from Leo. The possible Saturday game late in the season. Would that be a primetime game if on Saturday? Don't know the answer to that, Leo. I asked the Lions about that. They did not have an answer. I don't know that either the Lions or the Broncos, that's the other team they're playing, have been given any guidelines on that. You're right that typically a game is flexed to, or when games are left sort of in limbo like that, they're flexed to a primetime game. I was not given any guidance. I did ask about that because I was wondering the exact same thing. If that game was moved to Saturday, would it be the primetime game? The NFL is apparently planning on having 3 Saturday games that day this year, December 21st. So I guess there could be 3 time slots. I don't know when the timetable is for them making a decision on what teams play what date. I'd like to know soon, though, to help with travel plans, but I do not know the answer to that. And David from Jen and David, just wondering about why the Raiders never come here. No, so here's the deal. Just the scheduling formula. Last year, the Lions went there in the preseason. They seem to go out there every 4 years or so in the preseason. But every 4 years, you play the other in the AFC. You play each division. So AFC West, AFC South, AFC North, AFC East. They played the AFC East last year. They played the AFC West this year. The way the schedule rotation works is that you're going to play every team once at home and once on the road, the AFC, the other conference that is, every 8 years. So the last time the Lions played the Raiders in the regular season, it was here in Detroit. This time the game is on the road in Oakland. When they play the Raiders again in 4 years, it'll be in Detroit. 4 years after that, it'll be in Vegas. That's just how the scheduling formula works. The preseason, not a factor in that at all. The preseason, as Rod Wood has explained a little bit, every 4 years or so, because the AFC West and the NFC West, when they match up and play in the regular season, they don't play in the preseason. Therefore, the NFL has to change preseason schedules a little bit and send East Coast teams to the West Coast teams to the East Coast for preseason. So the Lions and Raiders just happened to match up in Oakland last year for the preseason. This year is just part of the regular season scheduling format. So, all right, appreciate your questions. Appreciate everyone joining me here on Freep.com and Facebook Live. Just figured we'd do a little quick Facebook chat about the Lions and the schedule release. Hope everyone makes their travel plans. And, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter, by email. Let me know where you're headed, what road games you're headed to. I always like to say hi to fans if I have a few minutes when I'm in town. It's always good to see people on the road. Lions fans do travel well, and I'm sure you guys will be in Arizona this year. And where else is a good road trip here? Oakland, that's probably a pretty good road trip. So I'm sure we'll see plenty of Lions fans at those couple stops. Thanks again for joining me here, and make sure you keep it on Freep.com all this week for the rest of our pre-draft coverage. That'll do it for me. Signing off here from my home, Dave Birkett, Freep.com.